In the Netherlands, the Sinterklaas tradition could one day disappear entirely due to the Black Piet debate. On the other side of the world, black people are painting their faces even darker, embracing the idea that the blacker, the better. So why does this Caribbean population care less about the controversy, while some in the Netherlands are deeply concerned about how the tradition is celebrated there? What would Sinterklaas look like if we stopped overanalyzing and simply embraced the joy of the holiday? And why can't we let go of this debate here in the Netherlands? Before we dive into this interesting topic, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you think the Sinterklaas tradition should evolve? And if you want to see more content diving into cultural debates and European perspectives, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Now let's continue with our story. Sinterklaas, or Saint Nicholas, is a beloved tradition in both the Netherlands and its former colonies, including the Dutch Antilles. However, the way this holiday is celebrated in the Antilles differs significantly from the Dutch mainland. While the core story of Sinterklaas remains the same, an elderly bishop arriving with gifts for children, the character of Zwarte Piet, Black Piet, takes on a unique cultural role in the Caribbean context. In the Antilles, the festivities are infused with local flavor, reflecting the island's Afro-Caribbean identity. Black Piet is often portrayed by black individuals who darken their faces further with black paint, making their skin even darker. This contrasts with the Dutch mainland, where Black Piet is traditionally played by white people wearing blackface, a practice increasingly seen as offensive. Why it's not seen as racism in the Antilles? On the islands, blackening one's face is often not viewed through the lens of racism. For many Antilleans, it's a theatrical and celebratory tradition rather than a racial caricature. However, there is a strong cultural awareness that if someone were to paint their face white to imitate a Caucasian person, it would likely be seen as offensive. This distinction reflects the lived experiences of racial dynamics in the region, where the historical context of blackface in Europe feels distant. Who sees it as racism? When the portrayal of Black Piet is criticized as racist, this perspective often comes from white individuals, particularly those living in the Netherlands. These critics are influenced by global conversations about racial representation and the problematic history of blackface. On the Antilles, however, the perception is different. Local white residents rarely voice objections, as they tend to view the tradition through the same cultural lens as the majority black population. Most of the pushback identifying Black Piet as racist on the islands comes from individuals who have spent time in the Netherlands or are closely connected to Dutch society. Their exposure to the European debate and the broader international critique of blackface often informs their views. This creates an interesting dynamic where Antilleans living abroad may critique the tradition more harshly than those who remain on the islands. Is the debate present in the Antilles? The intense debate about Black Piet that dominates Dutch discourse is less prominent in the Antilles. While some residents are aware of the controversy, many view it as a European issue rather than a pressing local concern. Antilleans often see the Dutch debate as overly politicized and disconnected from their own traditions and cultural interpretations. That said, there is growing awareness of the global conversations surrounding racism and cultural appropriation. Younger generations, especially those with ties to the Netherlands, are beginning to question whether certain elements of the tradition should evolve. The debate: racism or tradition? The divide over Black Piet centers around two main perspectives. Critics argue that Black Piet reinforces negative stereotypes about black people, regardless of local context. They point out that the character's exaggerated features and subservient role as Sinterklaas' helper reflect colonial attitudes. For these individuals, keeping the tradition unchanged perpetuates a legacy of racial inequality, even on islands where the majority population is black. Supporters emphasize the cultural significance of Black Piet and its evolution in the Antilles. They argue that the character is not tied to European notions of blackface but instead represents a festive figure beloved by children. For many, the tradition is about joy, not race, and altering it would feel like an imposition of foreign values on local culture. What does Sinterklaas himself look like in the Antilles? In the Antilles, Sinterklaas is depicted much like in the Netherlands. An older white man with a long beard, dressed in a red robe and mitre. He is typically portrayed by a white person, often a European or someone of mixed heritage. This aligns with the historical image of Sinterklaas as it originated in Dutch traditions. Interestingly, this portrayal rarely sparks controversy on the islands. The focus is more on the festive experience for children and the cultural celebration rather than the ethnicity of the actor playing Sinterklaas. However, some voices question the appropriateness of a white man being the central figure in a celebration on islands with predominantly black populations. That said, the discussion about Sinterklaas' appearance is minimal compared to the Black Pete debate. Most people see Sinterklaas as a neutral, positive figure, free from the complex historical baggage associated with Black Pete. Why do we hear so little about this in Europe? The lack of attention in Europe to how Sinterklaas and Black Pete are celebrated in the Antilles can be attributed to several factors. First, the Dutch debate is largely focused on domestic issues and how the tradition is perceived in the context of a multicultural European society. The Antilles, being geographically distant and culturally distinct, are often overlooked in this conversation. Additionally, the Antillean celebrations tend to adhere to the traditional portrayal of Black Pete, but because there is relatively little local controversy, it doesn't attract the same level of scrutiny. This silence may also reflect a broader tendency in Dutch media and public discourse to prioritize issues that directly impact the mainland, rather than exploring how traditions evolve in former colonies. Finally, the cultural perspective in the Antilles, where Black Pete is not widely seen as offensive, contrasts sharply with the polarizing views in the Netherlands. This difference may make the Antillean perspective seem irrelevant or even inconvenient to the ongoing debate in the Netherlands. Has the Black Pete debate been discussed in politics? The Black Pete debate has certainly made its way into the political landscape in the Netherlands, where it has sparked discussions in parliament and among political parties. Some politicians have called for the tradition to be reformed, arguing that it should be updated to reflect modern values of race and equality. However, this debate has not gained significant attention on the international stage, including in bodies like the United Nations, as it is seen largely as a domestic issue specific to the Netherlands and its former colonies. On the Dutch Caribbean islands, the debate around Black Pete is much less prominent. While there are occasional conversations about the tradition, the issue has not become a central political topic like it has in the Netherlands. For many people on the islands, the tradition is viewed differently, often as a harmless and joyful celebration, rather than a racially charged symbol. As a result, the political debate over Black Pete doesn't carry the same weight in Antillean politics. The discussion around race and tradition is more local, and while some Antillians are aware of the debate in the Netherlands, it hasn't sparked widespread calls for change in the same way it has in Europe. The Black Pete debate in the Dutch Antilles highlights the complexities of cultural identity in a post-colonial world. While some see the need for change in light of evolving views on race, others hold onto the tradition as a cherished part of their heritage. As this conversation continues, it remains a unique lens through which to understand the intersection of culture, race, and history in the Caribbean and beyond. What's your take on this issue? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into European and Caribbean cultural debates.